Since the dawn of heavy metal, bands have turned to public domain artwork for their album covers. Created by some of the best, most influential artists of all time, the art selected by often legendary bands hangs in the halls of the world's galleries and museums. And even if you're just some guy, you can slap it on your demo or whatever and sell CDs out of the trunk of your car in the lot. Thousands of records have been released with public domain art on them. Here are 10 that I think are pretty damn good. Gustave Doré is certainly one of the go-to artists when it comes to public domain album artwork for metal bands. Hundreds of album covers feature his illustrations. Rotting Christ, Burzum, and Dimmu Borgir, just to name a few, but perhaps none more famously than the cover of the self-titled EP by the Mighty Emperor. Their next EP, As the Shadows Rise, also had a Doré illustration on it, as did their second full-length album, Anthems to the Welkin at Dusk, but their first, released in 1993, is without a doubt as iconic as they come. The original engraving was titled Vision of Death, and it was a companion piece to another one called Vision of Hell, both of which contain the exact kind of atmosphere that early black metal bands were after. And to open this record up and be greeted by I Am the Black Wizards is as pure as black metal gets. Another great use of free Doré art is In the Constellation of the Black Widow by Anaal Nathrakh, which features an illustration made from a steel plate engraving that he did for an edition of Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven in 1883. The original image has been given a great treatment here, and the band's logo and record title are blended in perfectly. This record is as heavy as they come, and I fully appreciate why so many black and extreme metal bands are drawn to Doré's dark imagery. There is definitely a rawness to his work that matches the spirit of the early days of this music, and a clear influence on many of the artists and illustrators that would pioneer the imagery for black and death metal bands in the 80s and 90s, a visual style that remains strong today. Going in the opposite, bright, colorful, and detailed direction is the second Morbid Angel record, Blessed Are the Sick. The massive Jean Delville painting that he called The Treasures of Satan is definitely not your average 90s death metal album art, but it somehow fits the classic era release like a glove, and the sophisticated, highly detailed work of Delville helped to set what might be Morbid Angel's best record apart. As an artist, Delville was an idealist in every sense. He shunned the burgeoning commercial aspect to art at the turn of the 19th century, and remained committed to using art as a force to transform society and to improve the lives of those around him. Despite producing a huge number of paintings in his career, many were lost or destroyed by the end of the Second World War, never to be seen again. Speaking of classic genre-expanding albums, one of my all-time favorite openings to a record is the haunting first 4 minutes or so of Bathory's Blood, Fire, Death. The track Odin's Ride over Nordland is perfectly matched by an 1872 painting by Peter Nicolai Arbo titled The Wild Hunt of Odin, both of which pay homage to the Wild Hunt. This folklore theme, which typically involved a chase led by a mythological figure escorted by a ghostly entourage of hunters that was thought to forebode war, plague, and other catastrophes like getting your soul sucked into the underworld or being swept away to join the supernatural host of riders in the sky. It's a fitting cover and theme for the very early roots of Viking metal, planted here by the one and only Quorthon in the late 80s. If you look far enough back in time, you'll come to realize how matter-of-factly hard as nails life in general was once upon a time. Take this cover art for Cryptopsy's None So Vile, for example. Head on a plate, no big deal. In the Roman Empire of the 1600s, there was little opportunity for women to pursue careers at all, let alone become artists. But Sirani's father was a painter himself and taught his 3 daughters the Baroque style of his mentor and famed artist for the empire, Guido Reni. She would eventually be murdered in her own home by a bitter family maid. Anathema's Pentecost III, more Golden Age 90s music from a bygone era of the band, features a perfectly gothic painting by the very horny Lord Frederic Leighton titled Perseus in Andromeda. My man loved painting ladies, nudes, and sometimes dudes. This particular piece was based on a scene from Greek mythology, depicting Perseus and Pegasus flying past a trapped Andromeda on their journey home after slaying Medusa. As the story goes, Andromeda was to be sacrificed to a sea monster, put there by her parents in order to save themselves and their kingdom. Precisely the kind of thing that causes kids to rebel against their parents and the system in the first place. The oldest and probably least known entry on the list here is Angel Witch's self-titled album released in 1980. Angel Witch kinda got drowned out by the Iron Maiden, Saxons, and Judas Priests of the world, and this record, with a painting by John Martin called Angels Entering Pandemonium, was probably their peak. And speaking of Maiden, I debated swapping this one out with Bruce Dickinson's The Chemical Wedding because I always loved how much this tiny 6-inch William Blake painting on the cover just looks like Toxie the Toxic Avenger. But we're not here for the memes, right? Ahab's second album, Divinity of Oceans, was lyrically and thematically based on the sinking of the whaling ship Essex, the historical event that inspired Herman Melville to write Moby Dick. The artwork that the band selected for the cover is a painting called The Raft Medusa by French Romantic painter Théodore Géricault. The original piece is a whopping 20 feet wide and depicts the aftermath of another famous shipwreck of the naval frigate Medusa, where at least 150 people were set adrift on a raft constructed from the wreckage, and in the span of 2 weeks, all but 15 of them died. Ahead of its time musically, Celtic Frost's Into the Pandemonium features the oldest painting on the list here, and is taken from a Heironymus Bosch triptych titled The Garden of Earthly Delights, painted in 1504. The section they used is a very small part of the third panel titled Hell, and is a real standout compared to the rest of the painting, which is batshit crazy in the best way. Heironymus Bosch is without a doubt one of the more influential artists in heavy metal in general, maybe in a bit more of a low-key way, but if you check with a lot of artists out there, I'm sure they love Bosch. Check out my interview with Dave Davidson of Revocation and Gargoyle, where he talked about his love of Bosch and the influence he had on their last album cover, which is painted by Paolo Girardi. That same year of 1987 that Into the Pandemonium came out, Swedish doom legends Candlemass would release their own second studio recording, Nightfall. On the cover is a painting from one of my all-time personal favorites, Thomas Cole, titled Old Age from his Voyage of Life series, painted in the mid-1800s. The series of paintings depicts the life cycle of a man in 4 panels, starting with childhood, through to the last, which represents the character's death. Candlemass used another panel from this series by Cole for their next record, Ancient Dreams, before they decided to revert back to the skull and cross symbolism that dominates most of their covers. I'll wrap it up here with another Thomas Cole cover, and the most recent release on the list. Rotting Christ's 14th studio record, Pro Xristou, released just last year in 2024, is living proof that it's never too late or the wrong time to reach for public domain art. Taken from the series called The Course of Empire, the painting titled Destruction is a perfect cover for a record that, in the words of the band, is a fervent tribute to the last pagan kings who stood resilient against the Christian tide. A few bands have used this painting before, but I think this one is as pure and perfect a fit as it gets, given the themes of the record. If you ever get the chance to go to the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, make sure you stop by the extensive collection of larger-than-life Cole paintings. I'm a real sucker for landscapes, and Thomas Cole was an absolute master. As our old friend Paul Raymond Gregory says, if you want to be a painter, you first need how to learn to paint a landscape. Alright, well there you have it, 10 of my favorite album covers featuring public domain artwork. It's pretty cool to see bands still going for public domain stuff, even in the age of AI. This record just came out this month. Pretty cool painting on it. Public domain, there you go. Stay tuned for a short part 2 on this topic. I'm going to talk a bit about a painting that's been used on over 60 album covers, which is pretty crazy. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite public domain album art is. Even if it's not metal, let me know. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the other side.